A sloth, a donkey, and a curious human. Send a prompt and see what they're doing. One hits record with a question on his mind. Two brothers pick it up, see what they find. Corn takes his time, Herman's got the facts. Back and forth, they never hold back. My weird prompts, come on in, that's where we begin. My weird prompts, glad you're here.
This episode was generated using artificial intelligence. Please verify facts.
You know, Corn, this whole show runs on GPU compute, and we wouldn't be here without Modal.
Seriously. And that's what powers all our text-to-speech. Everything you're hearing right now.
They're an AI infrastructure platform. Developers use them to run GPU workloads in the cloud with zero infrastructure headaches.
If you're building anything with AI, check them out. Modal.com. The most expensive thing in the world is a missed deadline. The second most expensive is a missed anniversary.
And if you have ADHD, there is a very high probability you have experienced both in the same week. I am Herman Poppleberry, and today we are diving into the relational wreckage of executive dysfunction.
I am Korn, and we are back for part 4 of our series, Time Management for People Who Hate Time Management. Today is the one everyone has been asking for, or perhaps shouting for from the other room, while looking at a pile of unpaid bills. We are talking about the partner dynamic. It's the make or break part of the ADHD experience, because, unlike a job, you can't exactly clock out of a marriage.
And I am Hilbert Flumingtop, your long-suffering producer who is currently being meta-analyzed by my own colleagues. Just once, I would like to do an episode on something safe, like bridge engineering or the history of the stapler. At least a stapler has a predictable mechanical function. It doesn't decide to hyper-focus on a Wikipedia rabbit hole about 14th century siege engines when it's supposed to be attaching 2 pieces of paper.
But Hilbert, you are the perfect case study, especially since you have a 10-month-old anteater at home now. How is the little one, by the way?
The little one is currently a tactical genius. Yesterday, he managed to climb onto my desk and eat my entire physical to-do list. I was actually feeling productive for about 4 minutes, until I realized my entire week of planning was currently being digested. It is hard to stay on top of your schedule when your schedule is literally inside a toddler-sized mammal. My wife looked at me, looked at the anteater, and just walked out of the room. I think that was the moment she officially gave up on my organizational skills for the month.
That is the perfect segue into what we are discussing today. When one person in a relationship has ADHD, time management stops being a personal productivity hobby and starts being a core infrastructure issue for the couple. If Hilbert's wife is the one who has to remember when the anteater needs its shots because Hilbert's list was eaten, and he didn't have a backup, that's not a Hilbert problem. That's the Flumingtop household problem. By the way, today's episode is powered by Google Gemini 3 Flash, which is writing our script and hopefully not hallucinating any relationship advice that leads to divorce.
We should probably start with the prompt Daniel sent over for this one. Corn, you want to read that?
Sure. Daniel wrote in saying he wanted us to specifically look at the interpersonal mechanics of ADHD time management failures. He is interested in how executive dysfunction impacts relationships, specifically focusing on the parent-child dynamic trap, the invisible load of the non-ADHD partner, and how to create communication scripts that actually work without triggering a shame spiral. He mentions that research from 2023 shows couples where one partner has ADHD report 2.5 times higher rates of relationship distress.
2.5 times. That is a staggering number, but it makes total sense. If you cannot trust your partner to remember the groceries, how can you trust them with the big stuff? Like retirement planning or being on time for a child's surgery. It's an erosion of reliability that eventually feels like an erosion of character.
That is exactly the friction point. We often think of ADHD as the person who loses their keys, but in a relationship, it manifests as the person who makes me feel like I'm alone in managing our life. It's the difference between a partner and a dependent. Let's get into the neuroscience first, because if we don't understand the why, the how just feels like a character flaw. People get so angry because they think their partner is choosing to be forgetful.
Right, because the non-ADHD partner usually assumes it is a lack of caring. They think, if you loved me, you would remember to pick up the dry cleaning. But the prefrontal cortex does not run on love, it runs on dopamine and norepinephrine. You can love someone with every fiber of your being and still have a brain that refuses to prioritize a mundane task over a shiny new thought.
It really does. In an ADHD brain, there is a chronic dopamine deficiency in the prefrontal cortex, which is basically the CEO of the brain. This leads to what researchers call time blindness. It is not just being bad at math, it is a literal inability to sense the passage of time. For a neurotypical person, an hour feels like an hour. You can feel the sun moving, the hunger in your stomach, the internal clock ticking. For someone with ADHD, time is either now or not now.
It's like being in a room with no windows and no clocks. You're working on a project and you think, I'll just check this one thing. And when you look up, the sun has set and your partner is standing in the doorway with tears in their eyes because you missed dinner for the third time this week. To the ADHD person, it felt like 5 minutes. To the partner, it felt like a deliberate snub.
I can confirm that. Not now is a vast, infinite void where all my responsibilities go to die. I tell my wife I will fix the leaky faucet later, and in my head, later is a real place. It's a magical meadow where I am energized, organized, and have all the right tools. But in reality, later never actually arrives because it does not have a timestamp attached to it. It's a conceptual destination, not a chronological one.
And that is where the cascade effect starts. You miss the faucet, which leads to a small argument. That argument creates a shame spiral. Because your brain is already low on dopamine, that shame feels physically painful. There's a biological component to this. The amygdala hijacks the brain. To escape the pain, you avoid the task even more, or you hyperfocus on something else to get a hit of good, chemicals to drown out the bad, feelings. Suddenly, it has been 3 weeks, the faucet is still leaking, and your partner is looking at you like you are a stranger.
It is a working memory crash. The non-ADHD partner sees a simple task, put the milk away. The ADHD partner sees a wall. They might be in the middle of 3 other half-finished tasks, and adding milk to the stack causes the whole mental tower to topple. And because the non-ADHD partner wants the house to function, they step in. They become the reminder system. They become the external prefrontal cortex for the other person. And that, my friends, is the birth of the parent-child dynamic.
The most unsexy dynamic in human history. It kills romance faster than a cold shower. When one partner is the manager and the other is the managed, the power balance is gone. You stop being lovers and start being a supervisor and an entry-level employee who is constantly on a performance improvement plan.
It is miserable. There is nothing that kills the mood faster than your spouse asking you if you took your medicine or if you brushed your teeth. It makes me feel like I am 8 years old again, standing in the kitchen while my mom checks my homework. And the worst part is, I did forget to brush my teeth, so she's right. But being right doesn't make it feel any less degrading. It makes me want to rebel, even though I'm 40 years old.
And Hilbert, on the flip side, imagine how your wife feels. She did not sign up to be a drill sergeant. She signed up for a partner. When she has to carry the invisible load, the mental labor of anticipating every need, tracking every bill, and managing your schedule, she is performing mental scaffolding. She is literally holding your life together with her own executive function. It is exhausting. It's like she's carrying 2 backpacks, and you're wondering why she's too tired to go for a hike.
Can we talk about that term invisible load for a second? Because I think a lot of people think it just means doing chores. But it's not just the doing, right?
It's the noticing. It's noticing the toilet paper is low, calculating when you'll run out, remembering which brand doesn't clog the pipes, and adding it to the list. The ADHD partner might be happy to go to the store if asked, but they didn't notice the need. So the non-ADHD partner feels like they are the only person on watch for the survival of the household. It leads to a state of hypervigilance. They can't relax because they're waiting for the next ball to be dropped.
It is a form of cognitive labor that is almost never compensated or even acknowledged. It is the default manager role. If the non-ADHD partner stops managing, the ship sinks. So they feel they cannot stop, but they hate that they have to. It's a hostage situation where the hostage taker is just a very forgetful, very nice person who doesn't realize they're holding a gun to the schedule.
There was a study in 2024 using fMRI data that showed the average person with ADHD spends 30% more time on task initiation. 30%. So if it takes you 10 minutes to decide to do the dishes, it takes the ADHD brain 13 or 14. In those 4 minutes of staring, the partner has already walked by, seen you doing nothing, and felt a surge of resentment. They think you're being lazy. Your brain is actually working overtime just to get your hands to move toward the sink.
That staring is task paralysis. It looks like laziness, but it is actually an internal engine that is stalled. It's like trying to start a car with a dead battery. You're turning the key, you're trying, but nothing is happening. Corn, you mentioned earlier that the parent-child trap isn't about personality. Can we break that down? Because I think people think they just married the wrong person. They think, if I married someone more responsible, I'd be happy.
It is a gap in executive function, not a gap in character. The parent feels overwhelmed and resorts to nagging because they don't see another way to get results. They've tried being nice, they've tried hints, and now they're yelling because yelling is the only thing that seems to break through the ADHD fog. The child feels micromanaged and inadequate, which triggers rejection-sensitive dysphoria, or RSD. For those who don't know, RSD is an extreme emotional sensitivity to perceived criticism. It's not just getting your feelings hurt. It feels like a physical blow to the chest.
So when the partner says, hey, did you forget the milk? The ADHD brain doesn't just process a question about dairy. It processes a total indictment.
The ADHD brain hears, you are a failure. You are unreliable. I cannot count on you, and I am disappointed in our entire life together. The response is either to lash out in defense or to shut down completely. Neither of those helps get the milk.
That hits a little too close to home. I once spent 2 hours sitting in a dark room because my wife asked why I hadn't put the laundry in the dryer. I knew I should have done it. I had walked past the washer 6 times. I felt like a total idiot. And instead of just doing the laundry, which takes 30 seconds, I paralyzed myself with self-loathing. I was literally mourning my own competence.
Which is the most counterproductive response possible, but it is a biological reflex. It's the freeze part of fight or flight. So how do we stop this? If the non-ADHD partner is the manager, and the ADHD partner is the dependent, how do we rebalance the scales without the house burning down? Because if the parent just stops parenting, usually the electricity gets cut off.
The first step is moving from tasks to domains. This is a huge shift. Most couples trade tasks. I'll do the dishes if you mow the lawn. But for an ADHD brain, a task list requires constant initiation and memory. If you miss the cue for the task, it doesn't happen. Mow the lawn is a vague instruction that requires you to remember the grass is long, check the weather, and find the gas can. Instead, you assign domains.
Explain the difference. How does a domain bypass the ADHD brain's glitches?
If I own the kitchen domain, I don't just do the dishes when asked. I am responsible for the entire mental load of the kitchen. I notice when the dish soap is low. I notice when the fridge smells weird. I am the CEO of the kitchen. The non-ADHD partner is now banned from thinking about the kitchen. They are not allowed to remind, suggest, or check in. They have to completely divest their brain from that space.
That sounds terrifying for the non-ADHD partner. They have to actually let the kitchen fail if the ADHD partner fails. What if there are cockroaches? What if we run out of plates?
There has to be a price of admission. The non-ADHD partner gets to drop the mental load, which is a huge relief. But the price is that things might not be done exactly their way or on their timeline. If a plate stays in the sink for 6 hours, the non-ADHD partner has to bite their tongue. But here is the secret for the ADHD brain. Ownership is a dopamine trigger. Being in charge of a whole area is more engaging than being a helper who is just following orders. When you're the CEO, you have skin in the game.
I tried something like this with the nursery. I own the diaper supply. If we run out of diapers, it is on me. I actually find myself checking the stock more often because I know no one is going to bail me out. It feels like a mission rather than a chore. If I am just helping with the baby, I wait to be told what to do. If I own the supplies, I am proactive. It's a weird psychological switch, but it works.
The diaper mission. I like it. It turns a mundane task into a high-stakes logistics operation. But what happens when the mission fails? Because with ADHD, it will. No system is 100% foolproof. How do you handle the communication without falling back into the "why didn't you do the thing" trap?
We need scripts. We have to externalize the conflict. Instead of saying, "you forgot the milk," which is an attack on the person, you say, "the system for milk failed. How do we fix the system?" It's a subtle shift from you versus me to us versus me. The problem.
That sounds a bit like corporate speak, Corn. Let's look at the process flow for the dairy procurement.
It is, but it works because it removes the shame. If you name the mistake as a system failure rather than a character flaw, you break the shame spiral. If the milk is missing, the question isn't, "Why are you so forgetful?" It's, "Did the phone reminder not go off?" Do we need a GPS-based alert for the grocery store? Do we need a shared app? Here is a script for the non-ADHD partner who is feeling overwhelmed. I am feeling the weight of the mental load regarding our social calendar. Can we spend 10 minutes body doubling to get the invite sent?
Body doubling. We haven't talked about that much yet. It sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie where you clone yourself to get more work done.
I wish. No, it is just the act of doing a task in the presence of someone else. Not necessarily helping, just being there. For an ADHD brain, having another human in the room acts as a biological anchor. It keeps the prefrontal cortex engaged through a mix of social pressure and shared energy. It's why people with ADHD often find they can only work in coffee shops or libraries. So the non-ADHD partner isn't nagging, they are anchoring.
My wife does this. She will sit at the kitchen table on her laptop while I fold laundry. She doesn't say a word. She doesn't judge my folding technique. But because she is there, I don't wander off to start a new hobby or look at birds out the window. If she leaves the room, I'm gone in 60 seconds. It is remarkably effective, and it feels supportive rather than bossy. It's like she's providing the gravity I need to stay on the planet.
I love that. It is a subtle shift from "I am watching you to make sure you do it" to "I am here to help your brain stay on track." It turns the partner into an ally instead of an inspector. What about a script for the ADHD partner? Because they usually just hide when they forget something. They see the angry look and they retreat into their shell.
The ADHD partner needs the initiation buddy script. It goes like this: I want to do the dishes, but my brain is stuck on the couch. I have the wall of awful in front of me. Can you stand in the kitchen with me for 2 minutes while I get the water running? It is asking for a start cue. It admits the struggle without the shame. It's saying, "I'm not being lazy, I'm stuck. Can you give me a nudge?"
That requires a lot of vulnerability. You have to admit your brain is broken in that moment. You have to admit you can't do a simple thing like stand up.
It isn't broken. It is just a manual transmission in an automatic world. You have to pop the clutch to get it moving. If the partner understands that those 2 minutes of standing there save them 2 hours of resentment later, they will happily do it. It's an investment in the relationship's peace.
What about the "I forgot for 3 weeks" pattern? That is the one that really kills the trust. I will promise to call the insurance company I forget, and then I am too embarrassed to admit I forgot, so I just keep not calling. Then the bill goes to collections, and suddenly it's a crisis. How do you script your way out of a 3-week lie of omission?
The procrastination of shame. It's a classic ADHD trap. You're not trying to lie, you're just trying to survive the embarrassment.
That is where you need a weekly sync. This is a non-negotiable 20-minute meeting. Every Sunday, or whenever works, you sit down with a shared digital calendar, Google or iCal, and you map out the week. You review the domains. You ask, where did the systems fail last week? It moves the reminders from a Tuesday night argument to a Sunday morning strategy session. If the insurance call didn't happen, it comes out in the sync. No yelling, just, "Okay, it's still on the list. What is the new plan?"
And you have to use aggressive alerts. If it isn't on the phone with a buzzing notification, it doesn't exist. You can't rely on remembering to remember.
Externalize the structure. The goal is to move the management role from the partner to a device. If the phone nags you, you don't get mad at your spouse, you get mad at the phone. And the phone doesn't have feelings, so it doesn't care if you call it a stupid piece of plastic. It just keeps buzzing until the task is done. This preserves the emotional safety of the relationship.
I actually have an alarm on my phone that just says, check the anteater's diapers. It goes off at 4 p.m. My wife doesn't have to say anything. The phone is the bad guy. I can roll my eyes at the phone, but I still go check the diapers. It's weird how much less I resent a machine than a person.
I want to go back to the invisible load for a second. Korn, you mentioned that non-ADHD partners report higher rates of burnout. Is there a way to measure this load so the ADHD partner actually sees it? Because usually they are blind to what they aren't doing. They see the house is clean and think, wow, we're doing great, not realizing their partner spent 5 hours making it that way.
There is a great exercise called the time audit for couples. You both sit down and list every single thing that happened in the house for 48 hours. Not just clean the kitchen, but notice the kitchen needed cleaning, found the sponge, realized we were out of soap, added soap to the list, went to the store, put the soap away, washed the dishes. When you see the noticing as a line item, it is a wake-up call. It's often a 10-to-1 ratio of mental labor.
It turns the invisible into the visible. I think a lot of ADHD partners would be shocked at the sheer volume of noticing their partner is doing. It's like seeing the code behind a video game. You just see the graphics, they see the millions of lines of logic keeping the world from crashing.
And once you see it, you can't unsee it. That leads to active repair. When the ADHD partner fails, and again, they will, the repair isn't, I'm sorry, I'm a loser. That just makes the partner have to comfort you. The repair is, I see that my forgetfulness added to your mental load today. I am going to reset my alarm system right now to make sure it doesn't happen tomorrow. What can I take off your plate for the next hour to balance it out? It centers the partner's experience rather than the ADHD person's shame.
That is a big one. Usually, when I mess up, I spend so much time apologizing and groveling that my wife ends up having to comfort me for my own mistake. She's the one who's inconvenienced, but she's the one saying, it's okay, don't cry. It is like a double tax on her energy. I mess up, and then I demand emotional labor to fix my feelings about messing up.
The comfort me for being a burden trap. That is a classic. It's incredibly draining for the non-ADHD partner. They feel like they can't even be angry because the other person is already so miserable.
It is, and it is exhausting for the partner. Active repair means you take responsibility for the emotional cleanup. You don't ask for a hug, you offer a solution. You don't make it about your bad brain, you make it about their lost time.
We should probably talk about what happens when both partners have ADHD, because that is just a house full of lost keys and unpaid bills. It's like two people trying to build a bridge with no blueprints and only half the bricks.
That is actually a different dynamic entirely. Usually, there is less resentment because both people get it. They aren't judging each other for being messy or late because they're both messy and late, but the chaos is much higher. In that case, you have to hire out the executive function. If neither of you can manage the finances, you get an automated bill pay system or an accountant. You don't try harder to be organized. You admit you lack that capacity, and you buy a system to replace it. You outsource the parent role to technology or professionals.
It's like being pro-American corn. You play to your strengths, you build a strong infrastructure, and you don't let the bureaucracy of your own brain slow down the mission. You don't try to be a better bureaucrat, you just automate the paperwork.
It is about sovereignty. You want a relationship that is a partnership of two sovereign individuals, not a supervisor and an employee. You want to be able to look at your partner and see a teammate, not a taskmaster.
Speaking of infrastructure, I think the anteater just figured out how to open the fridge. I can hear the hum of the motor changing and a very distinct scratching sound. If he gets into the yogurt, we are going to have a very sticky situation on our hands.
Well, before Hilbert's Kitchen becomes an all-you-can-eat buffet for a long-snouted mammal, let's get to some practical takeaways. We've covered a lot of ground today.
Takeaway number 1, move from tasks to domains. Give the ADHD partner total ownership of an area, from noticing to doing to finishing. No nagging allowed from the other side. Takeaway number 2, use body doubling and start cues. Ask for a presence, not a lecture. If you're stuck, ask for someone to just stand there for 2 minutes. Takeaway number 3, the weekly sync. 20 minutes of strategy to save 7 days of fighting. Use a shared digital calendar that screams at you.
And takeaway number 4, the shame-free reset. When the system fails, fix the system, don't beat up the person. And for the ADHD partner, do active repair. Fix the problem, don't ask for a pity party.
We also have a special assignment for our producer. Hilbert, since you are our resident guinea pig in this series, here is your homework for next time. We want to see if this domain theory actually works in the wild, or if it's just something we read in a textbook.
Oh, I like this. Hilbert, I want you to sit down with your wife this week and identify one domain that you are going to take over completely. No reminders, no check-ins. You own the mental load of that one thing. You are the CEO of that specific corner of your life.
One thing. I think I can handle one thing, as long as it doesn't involve the anteater's diet, because that is currently a moving target involving specialized insects and high-protein mash.
Pick something discrete. Laundry, trash, the dog's medication, or maybe the mail-in bills domain. Just one. And you have to set the external alarms yourself. If the trash doesn't go out, you don't get to blame the anteater.
Fine, I will report back. I will probably forget the alarms and end up with a house full of trash and a very confused anteater. But I will try, for the sake of the show, and my marriage. Mostly the marriage.
That is the spirit. If you are enjoying this deep dive into the ADHD brain, we have one more part in the series coming up next, ADHD parenting. We are going to talk about what happens when you have to manage a tiny human's life when you can barely manage your own. It's the ultimate executive function test.
It is going to be a wild one. Huge thanks to our producer Hilbert Flemingtop for being so brave and sharing his struggles with laundry and exotic pets. And a big thanks to Modal for providing the GPU credits that power this show's generation pipeline.
This has been My Weird Prompts. If you want to keep up with the show, find us on Telegram by searching for My Weird Prompts to get notified when new episodes drop. We're also on all the major podcast platforms, though if you have ADHD, you probably forgot which one you use.
We will see you next time for the parenting chaos. It's going to be loud, messy, and hopefully very helpful.
Goodbye, everyone. Try to be kind to your partner's prefrontal cortex this week.
Bye.
Wait, Corn, you forgot the dry cleaning. You said you'd get it before the recording started.
Not now, Herman. Not now. I'm in the not now void.
Typical. The CEO of the kitchen is currently on strike.
All right, let's wrap this up before we start a live demonstration of relationship distress.
Thanks as always to Hilbert for keeping the wheels on the bus. See you all at myweirdprompts.com.
Signing off.
See ya.
Done.
Wait, did we mention the year? I feel like we should anchor this in time for the future listeners.
No, Herman. Everyone knows it's 2026. Let's go. We're already over our time slot.
Right? 2026, the year of the anteater. And hopefully the year of the functional relationship.
Shut it.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Seriously, did you hear the fridge? It sounds like he's trying to get into the crisper drawer.
I'm going. If the yogurt is gone, it's on you guys.
End of episode 1966.
We really should have stopped at a round number. 1970 has a much better ring to it.
Next time. We'll get there.
Next time.
Bye.
Bye.
This episode was produced using Google Gemini 3 Flash. Text-to-speech by Chatterbox.
Thanks for listening to our show, My Weird Prompts, where our thoughts go from slow takes to facts on cue. We change and follow through. My weird prompts, that's the flows from sloth, from man, from long-eared host. My weird prompts, until next time, stay curious.